I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. And as we gather here today, we acknowledge we are on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respects to the First Nation and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. So to start our program, we will be joined online by Saskatchewan's Minister of Agriculture, David Merritt. Also online today are Dr. Volker Gerdts of the VIDO and the Deputy Minister from TED, Jodi Banks. The rest of the presenters are actually here in the room today. So we're starting to slowly open up, and I'm very happy to have us all presenting in Boffin's at Innovation Place. We also have online 3 past presidents, Murray McLaughlin, Ian McFadden, and Dr. Wilf Keller. And we'll start our program with a message from the Honourable David Merritt, Saskatchewan's Minister of Agriculture. So Minister Merritt was elected MLA for Wood River on April 4th, 2016. He was appointed Minister of Highways and Infrastructure and was later given the added responsibility of serving as Minister responsible for SAS Bills and Priority Saskatchewan. In 2018, he was appointed Minister of Agriculture and Minister responsible for Saskatchewan's Crop Insurance Corporation. Minister Merritt was an active producer all of his life until 2019, and he's still a current landowner. Minister Merritt's presentation.
Thank you so much, Karen. Good afternoon, and on behalf of the Government of Saskatchewan and Premier Scott Moe, it really is a pleasure for me to be here and welcome you to your AgWest BIOS 2021 annual general meeting. The theme, obviously, for today's event is the power of partnership, and you know, there's nothing better than partnership. I was in one with my brother for 45 years, so it's awesome. It's a fitting theme for an organization that plays a key role in bringing the province's agriculture sector together. As with all of AgWest BIOS events, this is an opportunity to collaborate on key areas of support to help support our ag industry. So Saskatchewan is a leader in agriculture research and development, as you all know. So through strategic partnerships and collaboration on new innovations, we'll continue to thrive in this space. Our government has outlined our growth plan to many of you, and you've heard it before. Obviously, increasing value-added revenue to $10 billion by 2030, and also processing 50% of the pulse crops produced here in the province of Saskatchewan, and growing our agri-food exports to $20 billion by 2030. Every individual and organization on this call will play a role as we work towards these goals. Through investments in agriculture technology, you're helping farmers grow more and using less. Research and development lays the foundation for more sustainable agriculture practices. Ultimately, your work drives the industry forward. I'd like to thank AgWest Bio for leading the way in research and innovation. The work of your organization brings people together in key ways. The partnerships and connections you foster are invaluable to the industry for success and for growth. Like you, our government is committed to supporting research and technology development. Collaboration between Ministry of Agriculture and the industry is key to growing our ag sector here in the province of Saskatchewan. And I appreciate the work that AgWest Bio does to bring business, not only for not-for-profit organizations and government together. I think we have to have that nucleus to be able to bring everything together like that. Your work helps ensure we learn and grow together through the excellent training opportunities you also provide. An example that comes to mind is ABIC. Bringing in Curtis Frank is a perfect example of how AgWest Bio is helping to build networks of entrepreneurs in this province. Looking to the future, the agriculture industry will lead us through the post-pandemic economic recovery. And we're seeing it, we saw it last year, and we're continuing to see that growth. The work of AgWest Bio and your members is vital to help the province move forward. The newly launched AgriSource database will be a great resource to showcase our growing agri-value sector. I look forward to the innovative ideas AgWest Bio members will continue to bring forward in the months and years ahead. I want to thank you for this time for me to speak to you this afternoon, and I really hope you enjoy the rest of your meeting. Thank you very much.
And thanks to the Government of Saskatchewan for continued support and funding through the Agriculture and Agri-Food Canadian Agriculture Partnership Program, or CAP. We've been truly grateful for all the support we've received over the years. Next, I'd like to start our AGM by introducing Dr. Stephen Webb. Stephen is the chair of AgWest Bio and is also the executive director and CEO at the Global Institute for Food Security. Steve?
Thank you, Karen. And again, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to chair my first annual general meeting for the for AgWest Bio. I was almost going to say the Global Institute for Food Security because I'm stuck in that brain as the CEO. To kick off the meeting for determination of quorum, strict interpretation of the Saskatchewan Not-for-Profit Corporations Act does not permit electronic voting, and therefore we've encouraged our members to deliver proxies in advance of the meeting for quorum voting purposes. And again, thank you to all the members who have submitted their proxies, and we have achieved quorum. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and the agenda and approval and adoption of the agenda has already been previously circulated, and it has been approved by proxy. The minutes held on the 16th, meeting number 16th, which was held June 25th, 2020, which was a completely virtual event, so we're making progress in that we have a hybrid event going on. The meetings were approved, again, 100% by proxy. I'm going to go to my chair report for now. And again, I want to talk about this past year for AgWest Bio. And I'd say the word first. It's a year of firsts for AgWest Bio. It was the first full year with our new Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Karen Churchill. It was the first for me as the board chair after taking over from Bob Tyler. And it's also a year where we ushered in 4 new board members, some of which are present in person here as well as online, as well as new employees. And all this was done, as we all know, under an unprecedented public health emergency caused by COVID-19. Karen and the rest of the team at AgWest Bio rose to the challenge and have also developed a new strategic plan, which is strongly endorsed and supported by the board, and for the avoidance of doubt, represents a renovation, a rejuvenation of AgWest Bio. AgWest Bio has a long history of success, but every once in a while we need to regenerate and rejuvenate to meet the needs of the challenges that we're facing in the ag and food sector. And really the challenge that we're facing in the ag and food sector today, as Minister Merritt mentioned, is one of abundant opportunity. The need to form partnerships and collaborations to drive innovation for economic benefit for Saskatchewan, for our producers, but also, as Minister Merritt mentioned, the ability for us to produce more in a sustainable way. Ag is part of the solution for the challenges that we face. And this organization, as well as the members that make up the organization, are key to realizing that potential. COVID-19 has reinforced the importance of our sector nationally and domestically. The sector is critical, as Minister Merritt said, to the economic recovery, but it's also strategic, as we've seen during the COVID-19 crisis. As I look back on the year in review, I'm very appreciative of the agility shown by the team at AgWest, this facility, the meetings that the partnership between AgWest and Innovation Place to create this venue to bring Curtis Frank forward and have the presentations, to be able to convert and connect groups across Canada. And I want to thank Karen and the AgWest team for all their commitment. I also want to thank our board members that are retiring from the board. Danya Corden is leaving the AgWest board for additional responsibilities in the life sciences sector within Innovation Saskatchewan. Rick Green is leaving the board because he's now living in Ontario virtually. And then, of course, Bob Tyler, whose 6-year term has come to an end. And again, I'm very appreciative of his service because as the former chair, Bob has really helped me assume the board chair responsibilities and also has been a steady hand at the tiller as we've managed through all of the changes here at Ag West. I want to thank all of our funders, and particularly the Government of Saskatchewan, the Ministry of Agriculture, for your unwavering support for the association, particularly in this very eventful year. I also want to thank our partners, and there are many who have worked with us year to meet our goals and objectives of help moving the research to market, growing the bio business of the province. And finally, and very importantly, I want to thank my fellow board members for their commitment, because again, we've had our shoulder to the wheel and have been adjusting to a lot of the challenges that we face with an organization that is growing and moving towards a really promising future. There are great things in store for us, including partnership to grow early stage agricultural technology. Karen will have a chance to talk about some of the initiatives Ag West is leading with others. And we can fulfill our entrusted mandate to strengthen the bioeconomy here in Saskatchewan, and more importantly, Saskatchewan through the rest of Canada. So again, I want to thank Ag West for its commitment. I'm going to hand it over now for Karen to give us a nice report on the progress since our last meeting.
So then there's great things that I still need to do. There is a board of directors that I need to thank. And so I would like to introduce some of the board members that are one in the room today and some of them that are online. Of course, our vice chair, Aaron Armstrong, is joining us from Winnipeg. We have Kate Sanford Mitchell, who's in the room. Shannon, who's also in the room. Hood Knifer from the Food Center. And since I'm winging it, it's like, okay, 1, 2, 3. Steve Webb, Rick Green, Drew Britz. I don't know if we have their photos available. Oh, thank you. Yes. Sean Gibson from the ministry, Leah Olson from PAMI, Chris Masick from McKercher, and Lee Whittington from Four Oaks Investments and Coaching Organization. And yeah, so there they are up on the board, and I really do have to thank them for the time and service that they give to the board and direction that they provide for me. So a year has passed, and a year ago when I stood up at the podium, I had been here about 7 months, and I said, I cannot believe how so much time has gone so quickly. And I can say that again, I can't believe how quickly time has gone. And since I was 6 months in, I said, well, I'm going to just talk about what we're going to do. And we're going to create a strategic plan and a strategic roadmap that's going to help us deliver on Saskatchewan's growth plan. And we're going to see the best way to fulfill our mandate of growing innovation and creating commercial opportunities here to fulfill that mandate. And I'm really happy now, in a year, that I can actually say, yes, we did some of those great things. We launched what's going to be the Ag West Innovation Place, or Ag West Boffin's Innovation Series. So every Wednesday, we will be meeting in this room for virtual seminars to talk about those ideas and create connections. We launched the GAP in partnership with GIFTS, in partnership with Food Center and Innovation Place. And there's been quite a number of other things that were also in partnership. And I'm very proud to have seen the announcement yesterday of one that we have with SRITA. So SRITA is launching their Voyage program, and we're happy to have that program in place. And it will be drawing companies into the GAP, which again is growing and meeting our mandate. And I also mentioned a year ago that we weren't going to be doing it alone. We would be doing it with WD, with NRC IRAP, with the Food Center, and with so many groups that I didn't even realize that were out there that could be great partners for us. So I'm really happy that those partnerships are bearing fruit, and it's allowing us to do more. We launched AgriSource last week, and so AgriSource is a database which will help us create connections, but we need to take it to the next level. So it's an information source of what's available in Saskatchewan. It will help us in Saskatchewan find each other, but we need to use it as a marketing tool outside of Saskatchewan so that people realize how much more potential there is here. We also, if I can foreshadow a little bit, are going to be launching the startup platform. So the startup platform is a place for entrepreneurs to come and put their ideas through a system that will help them articulate that. So sometimes that is actually just the very first step. You have a great idea. How do you create a business plan? What do you do next? So that will also help funnel entrepreneurs into an investment-ready position. And then, of course, we have the investment fund, which we hope will continue to help provide seed money to grow more and more companies. So I look forward to the new partnerships that are coming. And in a year from now, I'll be standing up and telling you about the new partnerships and the new initiatives and the new companies. I'm really hoping that our panel will include more companies that have actually said, hey, I took advantage of this ecosystem that we're growing, and we are now here and setting up in Saskatchewan. So that's the goal. Hold me to it. And I can again say that it's going to be a team effort, and hence the theme of today's Power of Partnership, because that's how we make great things happen in the province of Saskatchewan. We do it as a team.
Thank you, Karen. Okay. Now we get to the business of the annual general meeting. We have received the audited financial statements and report from the auditor. There's a resolution that the members receive the audited financial statements and the report of the auditor, KPMG LLP Chartered Accountants, for the year ending March 31st, 2021 as presented. And this is the goofiest thing about these electronic proxies. So I see that I already know the outcome of the election. So 100% of the proxies carried the audited report. Reappointment of the auditor. The board has recommended that the membership reappoint KPMG as the auditor for AgWest Bio for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2022. And that has also been carried 100% by the proxies. Karen has introduced the board members, and again, I want to re-echo the importance that the board has played in managing the transitions and the new initiatives that Karen has referred to today, but also setting us up for success, as Karen's talked about, for the new initiatives and partnerships as AgWest continues to grow. On the board of directors, there's a couple updates. One, the government of Saskatchewan is our Class A member, has appointed Sean Gibson with the Ministry of Agriculture and Kirk Westgard with the Ministry of Trade and Export Development to the board. Election of directors, again, just from a process standpoint, no nominations were received from the membership in advance of the annual meeting, and the bylaws do not allow for nomination from the floor. And I also want to introduce our scrutineers, Ryan Grieve and Morgan, I guess, Boutine. They have the ones that have conducted the review of the proxy votes. And no photo. So standing for re-election was Lee Whittington. He was elected to the board 3 years ago, June 2018, and his term expires at the conclusion of today's meeting. And Lee has agreed to let his name restand for re-election. Standing for election are Naveen Booth, Federated Co-op, and Jennifer Milo from Synergy, and both have allowed their names or agreed to let their names stand for ratification by the membership. The resolutions that Lee Worthington be reappointed or reelected as a director to AgWest for an additional 3-year term ending June 2024 carried with 100% of the proxy votes. That Naveen Booth be elected as a director for a 3-year term ending June 2024 was carried by 100% of the proxy votes. And Jennifer Milo has, guess what? Was it 100%? Yes. Her election to the board was approved by 100% of the proxy votes as well. And Aaron Armstrong, who's in Winnipeg today with us online, has been reappointed as the vice chair of the board for an additional year. Any other business from the membership? None heard? I'm going to go to the fun part of the meeting. I get to terminate the meeting because we've covered off all of the things that we've needed to do related to the annual general meeting and get to the nice panel discussions. Is that the resolution that this is the 76th annual meeting of the members of Ag West Bio Incorporated be terminated. Nobody object till we get to the fun part of the meeting? Interactive part, guys? Everybody good with it? So I'm going to welcome Karen back to the screen to start the fun part of our meeting and introduce the event and each of the presenters, the power of partnerships, building an ag value ecosystem in Saskatchewan.
I should mention that we have 3 new members of Ag West Bio. Our Director of Ag Tech Innovation, Jay Robinson, who you'll hear from later today, but also Aaron Matthews, who's our communications coordinator, and Terry Lee LaRose, who is working in marketing coordination. So some new faces at Ag West Bio too. So I guess it is time to move on to our main event, which is the power of partnerships and building an agri-value ecosystem in Saskatchewan. So we believe Saskatchewan is on its way to becoming an agri-value powerhouse. We have many of the elements in place to make this happen. So this event will include an exploration of Saskatchewan's agri-value ecosystem. There are strengths, the challenges, and there are, of course, lots of opportunities. We also want to talk about collaboration, of course, and why we feel it is so important to success. So the event format is a mini symposium. We have 5 short presentations followed by a panel discussion on the value of creating that support structure to our success and the new Global Agri-Food Advancement Partnership. So we have a couple short breaks in the agenda. We now know what it's like to sit through endless Zoom meetings, so we've built those into the program. And after the formal presentation, we will draw for 2 door prizes, but you have to be present to win. And the prizes are going to be 2 Sask-made marketplace baskets full of course, Sask-made products. So they're lovely baskets. I've had them in the past. I wished I could enter to win, but I'm not going to. So we'll also, after the program, have 2 online breakout rooms, and these will be facilitated by members of the panel. So I hope that you have questions and that you want to connect with our panel members and give us a lot of feedback and ideas. That's what we're here for. We're here to create a discussion. We're here to grow forward. Those online breakout rooms, the links will be posted in the chat. So I'd like to welcome our speakers and thank them for participating. We have, I said online, Volker Gerdts, the director for VIDO, a Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization, who will talk to us about research and development. Deputy Minister Jodi Banks from the Saskatchewan Ministry of Trade and Export Development, who will talk to us about trade. Chris Barker from the Global Institute of Food Security, who will talk to us about tech adoption. And Deanna Herman from Sask Polytech, who will talk about HR and talent. And Cameron Kupper from Biooriginal Food Science Incorporation, who will give us a business perspective of an entrepreneur and a business in Saskatchewan. These are all essential elements, which makes us a great panel. So we'll start with Dr. Volker Gerdts. So Dr. Volker Gerdts is the director and CEO of the Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization, VIDO, located at the University of Saskatchewan, here in Saskatoon. From 2007 until 2018, he served as the Associate Director of Research at VIDO. He's also a professor for veterinary immunology in the Department of Veterinary Microbiology at the Western College of Veterinary Medicine of U of S. And he received a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine and a PhD from the Federal Research Institute for Animal Health in the island of Reims and Hanover Veterinary School in Germany in 1997. He's served on various administrative roles, editorial boards, and national and international science review panels. Of course, this past year, there's been a lot of focus on VIDO and the great things they're doing. So let me welcome to our virtual podium, Dr. Gerdts.
Well, thanks very much, and good afternoon, everyone. And thanks very much, Karen, for the kind introduction. There was a lot of veterinaries in there, so hopefully you see the value of having veterinarians in animal and human health research. So am I sharing, or are you sharing the screen right now?
We have it up if that works for you.
Okay, so if I could go to the next slide, please.
Sure.
So for those of you that are not familiar with the organization, and I see many familiar names on the list here, VIDO is a research center here at the University of Saskatchewan. Over the years, we have commercialized a number of vaccines. Now I can't see the slide. There we go. Number of vaccines. We hold the university's largest patent portfolio, and you can see spun-off companies and so on. In the context of the pandemic, really, I think what is most outstanding or most impressive in all of this is that right here at the university, we have Canada's largest high containment laboratory, the Intervac facility. It's one of the 3 largest in the world, and it allows us to work with these potentially dangerous pathogens, whether they're affecting humans or animals. Next slide, please. So our research portfolio, as you can see from this slide, is really looking both at human and animal health. And that has been, I think, our success over the last few years. It's this interface between humans and animals from which we see these new diseases emerge. And having expertise in the leg, if you want, in both of these really has given VIDO the competitive advantage over the year. Today, I was asked to mainly focus on our animal research, and you can see we continue to work in both the livestock industries and the poultry industries, so beef, pork, and poultry, as well as dairy, and to some extent also other industries. And really what we're trying to do is provide solutions through research. So we're focusing on these problems where either the industry currently doesn't have an adequate solution, or for which there is no solution available because it's a new disease. And you can see on the left side, those are the disease-specific research areas. Without going through them in detail, it just shows you the spectrum of research that's going on right now. And then on the right side is really the application of platform technologies, we call them, whether they're bioinformatics or formulation or adjuvants and so on, that can then benefit many of these individual research projects. And that's where we see the future for vaccines going, as we all witness right now with the RNA platforms and so on. It will be these platform technologies that allow us to rapidly respond. Next slide, please. So here are just a few examples, and as this is all about collaboration, I think it's important to point out that all of these 3 examples that I'm going to give are all collaborative research projects with researchers here in Saskatchewan, funded by the government of Saskatchewan, by Genome Canada, by Genome Prairie, by Genome BC, or through International Development Research Centre at the Government of Canada in Ottawa, with partners all over the world. And so the first example here, for example, is research using genomics to find solution for 2 of the most important diseases in cattle, namely Johne's disease and bovine TB. And you can see on the bottom there the annual impact on the Canadian industry that these diseases have. We don't have good solutions for them. And so VIDO, in partnership with UBC and a number of other groups, are currently working on developing better vaccines for them. Next slide. This is a new vaccine candidate that we just developed for another respiratory disease for cattle. It's still in the experimental stage, but as you can see from the data there, without really presenting any data slide, you can just look at the graph on the right side and you can see how non-vaccinated infected cattle continue to lose weight, which is quite significant, and that's what the money in the industry is, versus animals that have received the VIDO vaccine, how they continue to gain weight even after infection. So clearly the vaccine protects them from the disease. Next slide, please. And this is our PED vaccine. So this is research that also was funded by the government of Saskatchewan, but in partnership with Sask and also with Alberta Pork and Manitoba Pork. VIDO was one of the first organizations in the world to have a vaccine for yet another coronavirus, this time affecting pigs. We had a vaccine developed in 16 months, licensed it to a large company, a global company named or called Cuba Pharma. And right now we're working with these governments and other aspects of this important disease. How can we, for example, provide guidelines to the truck industry in controlling this disease and reducing the spread of it, and then also working with the pork boards, as you can see on the logos there on the bottom. How can we control this disease in lagoons, for example? How can we control these viruses around these premises to reduce the spread to other diseases? So we're not always only focusing on vaccines. Very often we look at the bigger picture, the bigger problem to the industry, and to provide our expertise and trying to find solutions for many of these different problems. Next slide, please. And here is the international example. This is a vaccine for lung plague in cattle, a very important disease in Africa. It's not a problem in North America right now, but it's just a matter of time before this disease is also coming to North America. Again, we were one of the first in the world to have a vaccine for it that seems to be more effective than what is currently available. You can see it won several awards, including, for example, one at the very international, at the premier vaccine congress in the world. Next slide, please. Now, you have probably heard in the news our vision of becoming Canada's Centre for Pandemic Research, and that is really speaking to us becoming one of the globally leading organizations to deal with both human and animal disease problems, be one of these centers in the world that can rapidly respond to any new disease, whether it's affecting humans or animals. And as part of that, we're currently building or constructing an in-house GMP manufacturing facility that will allow us to provide or produce right now here in Saskatchewan clinical grade material that then can go into the clinical development of these vaccines and fast track really the response to these emerging diseases. If you drive by our facility right now, you see the construction, as you can see on the picture there. But this is really in the bigger picture enabling us to become Canada's Centre for Pandemic Research. Next slide, please. And that's really the vision that I wanted to talk about today. That's really collaboration as it should be. This is going to be one of the centers in Canada that will be specifically focused on responding to emerging diseases. It will be one of the unique organizations in the world having everything from early discovery research all the way down to manufacturing and development. And so that will really set us apart from many other places, but it will also open opportunities for collaborations with the globally leading institutions in the world that are having the same mandate. And so we're very happy that we're taking on this new direction with the new federal and provincial funding. We're able to now set up a new animal facility that will allow us to house all these exotic species here from which we see these diseases emerging, whether they're insects, ticks, bats, or other species. And with that, my next slide, please. I'd just like to thank everyone for their contributions, and particularly the Government of Canada and also the Government of Saskatchewan, who have really come through in supporting our vision for becoming Canada's Centre for Pandemic Research by providing large amounts of funding to really now build these two new facilities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Volker. It is very, very exciting to be on the leading edge of globally significant research being done right here in our small city. Our next speaker is Deputy Minister Jodi Banks with the Saskatchewan Trade and Export Development Ministry. Jodi has over 27 years of experience in the public sector. She has worked at the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture, Intergovernmental Affairs, Saskatchewan Executive Council, and the International Engagement Division of the Ministry of Trade and Export Development. Jodi has a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from the University of Regina and a Master's of Public Administration from the Johnson Shayama School of Public Policy, also from the University of Regina. And she will be joining us online to talk to us about trade. Welcome, Jodi.
Thanks, Karen. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody today. I am very excited. Unfortunately, I couldn't be with you in person. We just weren't quite at that spot yet, but I was really happy to be able to join, to be able to do this. So thanks for having me. And it's just really my pleasure today to be here to talk about how Saskatchewan's expanding network of international trade and investment offices can help agri-value companies and the biosciences cluster advance what are all of our collective interests. This is such a great opportunity to learn how the agriculture sector is positioning to take advantage of emerging opportunities and become even more of a global powerhouse. And we've just seen such great dominance over the last couple of years in trade and expansion and investment. And I think there's better days yet ahead to come. So, the past year and a half have presented us with challenges which forced us to reimagine how we connect with those around us. And I'd really like to commend AgWest Bio for the resilience that you've shown throughout the pandemic, including helping businesses navigate new resources available to help address these challenges. And the launch of AgWest's Sask AgriSource database is a perfect example. What an excellent resource to promote local agri-value or biobusiness in Saskatchewan. It's truly heartening to see that we are slowly moving towards a more hybrid virtual in-person formats. And this clearly shows how much progress we've made tackling this pandemic and the leadership that we will continue to rely on as Saskatchewan moves past COVID response and towards economic recovery. Although it has been a challenging time, the pandemic has also highlighted Saskatchewan's strength in the agri-food innovation and reliability as a true supplier of what the world needs, even during times of crisis, and particularly in times of crisis. As our economy moves towards reopening and recovery, we must do everything we can to ensure our leadership position is reinforced and expanded. So this all comes together with the foundation and the framework that we've been provided from the Saskatchewan Plan for Growth. And the Saskatchewan Plan for Growth provides a clear framework as we continue the province's economic recovery and return to growth. We know that agriculture will play and does play a significant role. We know that agriculture accounts for over half of Saskatchewan's total exports. And we know that sustained development of the sector is key if the province is to achieve many of the goals outlined in the growth plan. Like increasing the value of exports by 50%, increasing the number of markets to which Saskatchewan exports more than $1 billion, and attracting $16 billion of investment annually. Those are three goals of the growth plan that are key action items for the Ministry of Trade and Export Development for sure. So to achieve these goals, we must continue to promote the province's strengths and work closely with valued partners like AgWest Bio to support research and innovation across the province, which will be critical to our success. We're committed to working together to advance our collective interests abroad, and we will continue to address the challenges as they arise. Increased geopolitical tension resulting in non-tariff barriers are an example of the challenges we face in trade. Whether it be canola in China, pulses in India, or country of origin labeling in Europe and the United States, Saskatchewan continues to work to ensure global trade is guided by clearly defined and enforceable rules. Strong dispute resolution mechanisms have become critically important, especially when the scientific basis for decisions is unclear. While many of these issues have been challenging to resolve, I can assure you the province will continue to advocate on behalf of industry partners. And we have a whole group of people in our ministry that do just that every day. At the same time, we've seen some of these challenges, but we also have some great new opportunities. And these opportunities have emerged in response to shifting supply chains, emerging health trends, and some of the new trade agreements that have been signed. And I believe Saskatchewan is ideally placed to capitalize on these developments. And increased engagement internationally will ensure that we are prepared to respond to the emerging opportunities while remaining competitive in a rapidly changing global environment. So in order to take advantage of these opportunities, the Saskatchewan government has been making strategic investments in international infrastructure that will help Saskatchewan stakeholders succeed abroad. As the Deputy Minister of Trade and Export Development, I am really proud of the work we are doing to reinforce Saskatchewan's global presence as we plan for the next decade of growth. Saskatchewan's new network of 8 international and trade offices will serve as the foundation to tell the Saskatchewan story and connect even more closely with our international partners. We have the opportunity to go out and build that brand and tell that story. And we will be at the front end trying to do just that. The mandate of these offices is to grow trade, attract investment, support innovation, and drive international engagement in key markets to advance Saskatchewan's growth plan goals. Specifically, the network will strengthen the province's global relationships and business partnerships by making connections between Saskatchewan businesses and buyers, promoting foreign direct investment, enhancing opportunities for research and innovation partnerships, and providing market intelligence and support to Saskatchewan exporters navigating international markets. This network will be just another tool in the toolbox that will be able to amplify the successes of our agri-value and biosciences sectors in front of a global audience, as well as support the research and trade priorities that are so important to many of you here today. Over the past year, we have grown from one standalone office in China to a network of 4, which are all co-located at Canadian diplomatic missions in China, Japan, India, and Singapore. In the spring budget, Premier Scott Moe announced the network will expand further to include offices in the United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates, Mexico, and Vietnam. And I'm excited to say that recruitment of managing directors for those 4 new offices is already underway. So new trade and investment offices will not only help us service specific high priority markets, but also identify new opportunities in the regions in which they are located. Complementing the international offices, the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and the Saskatchewan Trade and Export Partnership all deliver programs and services to support agri-food exporters. And together we are committed to helping our private sector capitalize on growth opportunities in a post-pandemic economy. The future looks promising as we stand at this juncture with the opportunity to lead the world as a preferred supplier of high-quality agri-value products and technologies. And we look forward to working with all of our partners to make this happen. If you have any questions about how we can help your business take advantage of these opportunities or address challenges you're facing in the international marketplace, please do not hesitate to contact our team. You can come through the ministry, you can come through the offices directly. Just reach out and let us know, and we are happy to make the connections and help in any way that we can. This is, part of these offices and these services are to help Saskatchewan businesses and help Saskatchewan be successful. So I will just close today by saying thank you to AgWest Bio for the invitation, the chance to be able to come and talk to you about what we're doing in the ministry, and for having me here today. Thank you.
And thank you, Deputy Minister Banks. I'm sorry that you couldn't join us in person today because it's really a lovely venue. I'm really excited about this. I'm hoping that we will see many of you here on our Wednesday night event series because it is exactly like I envisioned it, a beautiful venue, people can almost talk clearly, and it's the sports bar for nerds that I wanted it to be. If you look around the room, everybody's looking in different places because there's a different monitor. And then of course we can bring in these wonderful speakers from everywhere who don't actually have to be here, but we can still hear from them. So that's the great thing. So our next speaker is Chris Barker. Chris is the Director of Research and Business Development for the Plant Phenotyping and Imaging Research Center at the Global Institute for Food Security. Following the completion of a Master's of Science in Applied Microbiology from the University of Saskatchewan, Chris led project management activities with local startup companies BioStar and Metamorphics. Prior to joining GIFts, Chris was the Chief Scientific Officer for Genome Prairie, where he was responsible for the organization's strategic research and partnership agenda. So in his role, Chris provided leadership, oversight, and coordinated the development and management of GP's collaborative research initiatives. So we're very pleased to have Chris here today to talk about tech adoption.
All right. Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you, AgWest, for inviting me to be here. It's great to get out of the house. And you still have to wear a mask, but it's a good reason to wear pants as well, so that's all good. So yeah, are we up? I'm here to talk about tech adoption, but what I'm going to talk about is what the Global Institute for Food Security is doing to try and set the table for tech adoption, and that's, developing systems and structures to support innovation that's focused and directed to markets that are ready for those and eager for those technologies. Okay. All right, so a little bit about GIFs. It was established in 2012. It is a truly public-private partnership with founding partners Nutrien, the province of Saskatchewan, and the University of Saskatchewan. So all three partners really do bring something to the table, but they give us the freedom to actually do what we need to do to drive innovation in the ag tech space. So like AgWest, we've been undergoing a new strategic plan, and part of that is a new vision and mission. Our vision, a world where everyone has access to safe and nutritious food, and our mission, and it's particularly important to the conversation that we're having today, and one that drives everything that I do and the team at GIFs does. We work with partners to discover, develop, and deliver innovative solutions for the production of globally sustainable food. So the reason we're all here is to find that partnership path to making a difference in the world. So, challenges to adopting technology. Canada does have a problem. If you look at our performance, we're 9th in the world in terms of research dollars. We're 30th in the world in outcomes achieved, and we're way back in 60th in terms of innovation efficiency. So we have a real problem. Ag and food, very important for us, but the system for innovation, it's diverse, it is dispersed, it often operates in silos, and everybody seems to work semi-independently. Also, ag tech has some real structural challenges. Pharma has a very well-developed system that everybody knows how to move along the path, how the value chain works in terms of innovation. Ag tech's very different. We have timelines that are guided by the weather, and that's a challenge that we simply cannot get around, but we have to deal with. So, bridging the innovation gap. Funding, obviously, but there's more to it than funding. You need expertise, you need to understand the market that you're entering, the market needs, and the opportunities that are out there. And you need a path from invention to innovation. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But first, understanding the market needs. And this is a very important piece for GIFs moving forward. We're establishing a grower advisory panel to involve users very early on to provide expert advice for food producers, science and technology needs, the industry market trends, so we're always looking forward, and recommendations from the ultimate users of the technology, how best to translate the science into impactful solutions. We also have a board of directors Like I said, we're different. The board of directors manages us on behalf of the 3 partners. It's made up of industry and sector experts. They provide tremendous advice and insight into the market needs. And we have an international scientific advisory panel. And this is world-leading scientists from around the world, but they're not just academic scientists. These are people that have done it in countries all around the world. They've brought products to market. They've seen how innovation works and how it fails. So they are a tremendous resource for us. So back to the path from invention to innovation. An invention creates an ability, and our universities are fantastic at creating inventions. An innovation takes those abilities, scales them, and creates a market impact. Universities don't do that. It's not part of their scorecard. They don't get a good paper out of it. Once the patent's done, they're done. That innovation really requires a different skill set, and often it requires bundling several different inventions together. So, another set of tools that we've been building at GIFS is the Ag Tech Hub. And that's, again, an opportunity to find partnerships, to develop the path from invention to innovation to ultimately a product. So we have our IP portal, and it's a pilot project with the university right now, designed to capture intellectual property from both the GIFS research community and the Plant Phenotyping and Imaging Research Center researchers at the university. And I'm going to talk more about that in a bit, but I just want to mention the ideas portal that we also have there. And this is a connection opportunity for anybody around the world that wants to connect with GIFS. You can go on to our website, you can go to the ideas portal, you can start a conversation with us about your needs, your interests, the opportunities you see. Now, some of those things may or may not fit into GIF's core mandate, but one of the things that we want to be able to do is establish those partners. So if we don't have that core capability, we will find somebody that does. We want to be the catalyst to drive partnerships that result in innovation. So that's really the key behind our ideas portal. So back to the intellectual property capture. So IP, everybody knows, patents, copyrights, trademarks. And again, universities are very good at capturing those. But there's also trade secrets, prototypes, know-how that often don't get captured. And if you don't have a way of capturing them, you don't have a way of mobilizing them. So protecting IP through patents is great. It's really important, but also is mobilizing all sorts of IP. And again, an invention is just an invention until you can combine it with some other pieces of information, pieces of knowledge, other inventions to create an innovation. So it's important to capture all types of IP and create an environment that rewards combining inventions and building real innovations. So you need something outside of that environment, the existing environment. So innovation is a team sport. That was a line that came up several months ago. I think Steve was on a panel, and I don't know if he planned it or just blurted it out, but I think it's gotten real traction, particularly in this community. So one of the things that we're doing to support that is creating a specific purpose, not-for-profit corporation, focus on moving agriculture and agri-food inventions to market-directed innovations. So it's designed to connect stakeholders to work them together, provide a safe harbor where inventions can be combined to create those innovations, and obviously provide access to additional funding to support that work. So this provides GIFs the ability to focus on external markets and stakeholders to catalyze formation of the Global Agri-Food Advancement Partnership, which we're going to be hearing a lot more about later today. So, in conclusion, Gifts is here to build a effective support system to drive innovation, going beyond traditional curiosity-driven research towards mission-oriented research that really focuses on meeting market needs and catalyzing that innovation by building and sustaining support systems around the development of ag and food tech and advancing ag tech all the way along the development path from discovery to development to delivery. And with that, thank you very much. That's yours.
Thank you, Chris. So next I'd like to introduce Deanna Herman. So Deanna is the Academic Chair of Sciences and Natural Resources and Co-op Education at Saskatchewan Polytech. Deanna has been with Sask Polytechnic for 21 years in a number of roles. She oversees the curriculum and research in a number of program areas, including the Agriculture and Food Production Diploma, which is to be launched in Moose Jaw in fall 2022. Deanna holds a master's degree in communications and technology from the University of Alberta, and we're very pleased to have her today to talk about talent.
Thanks very much for having me here today and asking me to speak about workforce training. And I too was extremely happy to be able to leave my house. So, and I don't have to worry about the screen sharing. I'll just ask you to advance my slides. So you can go to the next one. So I just want to make sure that I also address the fact and acknowledge that Sask Polytech campuses are on Treaty 4 and Treaty 6 territories and the homelands of the Métis and the ancestral lands of Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, and Dakota. Next slide. Just an overview of my presentation. I am going to be focusing on programs in the schools of mining, energy, manufacturing, and natural resources and built environment. Those are the primary, those are the schools that I'm involved with, and they are the ones that have the primary programming in the agriculture and agri-value sector. I'll also touch on land-based learning partnerships specifically that we are involved with and some of the initiatives there. Just a small mention of that. And then a mention of what we actually are doing in agricultural research partnerships and projects. So next one. So I just want to explain, first of all, what the Polytechnic model is in workforce training. It's different perhaps than maybe some of the things you're familiar with in post-secondary training. So we specifically focus on hands-on experiential learning. So that is a component of every program. So work integrated learning includes co-op work terms. It includes things like practicums and industry capstone projects that students are involved with, as well as opportunities for students to participate in applied research projects in our several applied research centers across various campuses. So this formula, the work integrated learning, the applied research opportunities, and our ties with business and industry, which I'll explain in a second, result in work-ready graduates. And so as a result, 92% of our graduates are employed shortly upon graduation. Our industry links I was talking about are program advisory committees. So they actually advise each diploma program on relevant industry trends so that our programs stay relevant and useful to industry, and we can respond to any requirements that they may have. So the statistic at the bottom just indicates the importance of Sask Polytech to training to the economy. Next slide. So why is it so important that we have appropriate workforce training particularly in the agriculture and agri-food sectors? Because of the huge labor market gap that's happening right now. So There is a shortage right now, and it's expected to increase over the next 8 years. And that does have a negative impact, obviously, on the sector. So with all of those difficulties listed there, production delays, labor costs, in lower quality products, all those kinds of things that happen as a result of the fact of not being able to get an appropriately trained workforce. Next slide. So we've recognized that as an institution, and specifically as a School of Natural Resources and Built Environment. And we've been working actually since 2015 to get a polytechnic diploma program in agriculture for delivery in the province. Obviously, there are other agriculture programs in the province, but the labor market needs assessments that we have done have indicated to us that industry was not finding the appropriate meeting of their needs through these other programs. So they were looking for something different. And finally, in January of 2021, we did receive approval from the Ministry of Advanced Education to deliver the Agriculture and Food Production Diploma from the Moose Jaw campus. Next one. So our first intake is fall 2022, as was mentioned, and 30 students. That includes international students. We will have international students in the program. And it is a co-op program, so there will be 3 co-op work terms. So we are going to be looking for assistance from industry and building up that data bank of employers who would be able to take on a co-op student. And the training is designed to meet those needs in those high demand areas that are listed here, such as grains, pulses, livestock, agricultural research, and precision ag. Next one. So currently there is a renovation project happening on the Moose Jaw campus. So it was timely for us because we're able to build a new agriculture lab right on campus. We'll also have off-campus training available where students can become familiar with agricultural equipment. And we also are looking at kind of a diverse delivery model where we're partnering with and looking to partner with agribusiness around Moose Jaw to be able to deliver curriculum on farm, so students have more opportunities for hands-on training. What is the major, I guess, focus though of our program is capacity building, and that's really important. Our demographics, as you know, are changing, so we have more new Canadians. We have fewer and fewer people who have a connection or a relationship to agriculture or the farm. So there are many, many potential students who want to learn about agriculture, who want to get into the sector, but don't know how to start. And so this training will provide them that foundational learning and that foundational knowledge. So that's why we're also including international students. We need to start building that workforce capacity. Next slide. I'll just mention a few of the other programs that you may be familiar with. Bioscience Technology Diploma Program in Saskatoon. So it trains for these various sectors that are listed here. And it's closely associated with the Bioscience Applied Research Center, which allows, again, students more opportunity for hands-on learning. And through that program and that center, we're also seeking, as an institution, a cannabis research license to expand our opportunities for learning and to support the industry in that area. Next slide. Another program in Saskatoon is Chemical Technology, another 2-year diploma. Trains many grads, or many of the grads work in potash, canola crush, ethanol, and malt production, food production. We also have innovative manufacturing in Regina, and it is closely associated with our biomaterials testing and prototyping research facility in Regina. So that facility is taking agricultural waste products and using them for other purposes. So for example, we have a project that is continuing to optimize biocarbons using agricultural waste materials, such as flax straw, for example, that has been difficult for farmers to deal with, but this is an opportunity for them to get some value add out of that product. As well, the newest project that we have there is creating light aggregate construction materials out of, again, crop straw and agricultural waste plastic. So things that would otherwise go to the landfill. Next slide. A few others, I'll mention water resources, engineering technology out of the Moose Jaw campus, water management, water supply, drought management. So a lot of the grads there are employed in the Water Security Agency, design and manufacturing engineering in Saskatoon, and trades programs, of course, as well, that contribute to manufacturing. Okay, next one. Land-based learning. I just want to touch on our Hannon Creek Education and Applied Research Center near Candle Lake. It's associated with our curriculum delivery for programs in Prince Albert, and is also part of our community outreach in Indigenous teaching and learning. So we are, in 2020, we received an award from the United Nations as an acknowledged flagship project for sustainability goal number 15, Life on Land. Next slide, please. So we are at that site partnering with Prince Albert Grand Council, Prince Albert Grand Council chiefs, in creating an Indigenous experience and learning center. And it's an outdoor learning center, part of our commitment to truth and reconciliation as an organization. And in addition to cultural teachings and natural land-based stewardship, we're also looking at Hannon Creek to working on horticulture and food sustainability in the north and alternative energy generation. Next one. So I'll just touch on agriculture research. We didn't have a program, but we have a research chair, and he's been around since 2018, and that's in partnership with Glacier Farm Media and the facility at Discovery Farms in Langham. So I just have listed here some of the projects that he has going. And next slide. And those are another couple of those projects. So I just want to sum up that we are looking to address the gaps in the labor market shortage in the agriculture and agri-value sector, and particularly by building capacity in that area so that we can actually address the labor shortage and then meet the anticipated demand that's coming up in the future. So final slide. This is our contact information for my dean and myself, and just encourage anybody to reach out to us at Sask Polytech. And if you have any questions, I'm actually going to be around this afternoon. So if you wanted to ask me anything, I much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. So our next speaker in this series is Cameron Kupper. So Cameron is Vice President of Training and Business Development at BioOriginal Food and Science Corporation. So since joining BioOriginal in 1994, Cameron has had the opportunity to work in various facets of their business, including operations, new product innovations, and sales and marketing. He's responsible for opening new markets, launching new product categories, while providing technical support for the sales and marketing team. So connecting with people to drive strong relationships is foundational to everything Cameron does, both professionally and personally. Welcome, Cameron.
Thank you again for the opportunity of joining today and speaking a little bit about BioOriginal. Thanks, Ag West, obviously, and everyone here that's in attendance and also online. I'll be doing less presenting and more just kind of sharing some of our experiences. So Don't expect me to be fuddling too much with the presenting equipment. So I was asked to talk a little bit about our company's perspective on partnership and collaboration. To do that, I need to go back in time. Value-added agriculture was a buzz term in the 90s. Farmers are looking to diversify and try different crops. The nutraceutical industry here didn't exist. At the time, efforts to support and develop value-added agriculture were pursued by determined entrepreneurs, small and large companies and government agencies. And there was no easy way to frame that back then because there was no organizations of this depth that we have today. And from the conversations we're having about the programming that's available, it just wasn't there the way it is today. So personally, at the time, I was working as a co-op student. Thank you very much for the tick on the co-op student, by the way. And for Saskatchewan Food, actually. And I had the good fortune to meet a whole bunch of founders, entrepreneurs, and government leaders who really wanted to develop the value-added food industry in Saskatchewan, which at the time was found to be a lot of, I would guess, interesting ingredients, but no one knows what to do with and no one could process them. So during that time, work was being done for these companies on how to use these products, process them. Think of pea-based starch fat replacers back in you would remember that specifically. And things like original vegetarian burgers that fell apart before you could get them on the pan. And so we got to try all of that stuff when I was there. It was very interesting, and as a young person, wondering what to do in a career, I had no idea what was going to come for me in front of the next 25 years. And so I was very fortunate, though, to be in that organization with those people and come to meet the people we met at that time. So company names that you might remember, Randolph and James, Infraready, PG Canada, which became Bioriginal, the Food Center, SunWest Labs, NRC, Ag Canada, POS, were all part of that infrastructure and kind of biosphere that was around at the time, developing products and ideas and process technologies that became things that we ended up actually marketing over the last 25 years. And it was really impressive to watch that when you look back on it versus when you were there. At the time, it was very interesting, but when you look at the number of things that had been developed in that last 25, 27 years, it's very impressive. And the organizations that have grown out of that today to create the infrastructure that we have now. So it's interesting, too, at the time, people met, after dinner in living rooms, offices, coffee shops. Think of Robin's Donuts, not Tim Hortons, because that was a thing at the time. Discussing ideas and sharing the dreams for products. And it's interesting, no matter where the ideas came from or how you financed your business, you needed to find partners to do it because you didn't have all the capabilities yourself. You didn't have all the skill sets in your teams. So you needed to work with other organizations. So Bioriginal was formed very much in that way in 1993. So again, sticking with the theme of kind of thinking back on this, when I was talking to Brad a couple weeks ago, we talked about collaboration and partnership. And it's interesting that many things have changed. In this building, boffins didn't exist. The floor that's here was in a squash and racquetball courts right over here. But the wood was taken from a gymnasium that was taken apart somewhere in the city previous to that. And so things like that have changed, and it's become wonderful that we have this, but collaboration and partnership still needed to be there. And no matter what we do, that's still part of the need for companies as they grow. So Bioriginal, we've been very fortunate. We've got great partners. We've had strong leadership, lots of hard work, and a ton of mistakes that have made us kind of the company we are today. In the late 1980s, kind of the pre-Bioriginal PGE Canada, we worked at POS. Drew's here someplace, but around the corner. Drew at POS at the time, we took over the boardroom, and that was our first office. And Drew ran the financials for us, kept track of the cost of our business, etc. We ran all the analytical testing at the lab there, and also at SunWest. And from a small office in that boardroom with 2 employees and 3 clients, we've grown to 200 employees and clients, global footprint around the world, and operations in Canada and also in Europe. I'm also proud to say those same 3 clients that we had in 1993 are still clients of ours today. So this was really the incubation idea before incubators were really kind of talked about at the time in any kind of formal way. And it was just There was a need. An organization saw a way to provide that service, POS at the time, which was fantastic, and the other organizations, and it just really worked for us. So you might see, what slide do you see over there? The Cook family companies. Thank you. So that brings us to today. So today, Bioregional is proud to be part of the Cook group of companies. Cook was founded in 1985 by Glenn Cook, his brother and his father. One salmon pen and some smolt and a bunch of hard work. And over the next 25 years, they've grown, or actually next 30 some years, they've got well over 10,000 employees with 25 different species of fish or seafood that they catch or harvest globally. Now, kind of where we fit in, you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah, and just to the next one, thank you. So Bioregional has become, through the acquisition, the human nutrition group for Cook. So we've got over roughly 200 staff kind of in North America and Europe globally. Strong vertical integration was kind of our original strategy back in the 90s, and it continues to today. Really understand the supply chain, manufacturing, and packaging for our clients, which with COVID has become even more critically important because the global supply chain has been damaged so terribly for moving goods from other parts of the world to here. And we saw that with major customers in the United States and Canada who typically have pushed their production or needs out to Asia and other countries outside of North America. There was some panic in the air sometime around April, May, and June of last year because they couldn't get what they normally bought there. And so because of where we're located, we are able to take advantage of being close to the clients, and if we had the products to make things, so we ended up making more for North American clients than we ever thought we would actually. And it comes down to the, how do we manage risk in our business and what Saskatchewan and what our industry and ag can offer here locally to 400 million people, literally the North American marketplace. So from that point, again, we went from one product, borage oil, to 7 major categories. Our integrated supply chains that we do have, which still work fairly well, let us bring products here that we don't grow in Saskatchewan and process them. But you can see here we've got flax and hemp and coconut products, avocado, fish and krill and borage, etc. Those are all things that we either grow ourselves or have contracted to produce in different parts of the world. We have different sites to do some basic extraction of those products. The fish oil is done in North America in 2 different locations, both Alaska and also in the eastern seaboard of the United States. We produce base oils out of that we can make into other things. Semi-finished stuff that someone can put into a food, or semi-finished stuff that can go into pet foods, etc. And also in Saskatchewan here, we do have the capability of putting things into finished retail packages. So if you were buying stuff at Costco, a range of products, you would be buying stuff that came out of our plant in Saskatoon. Now, having said all that, how did we get there? We talked about partnership earlier. We talked about kind of how we kind of arrived at this. It's the connecting with Shannon back when she was in the pea business, and working with the food center later on developing new formulations of a range of things. Particularly in POS, looking at the process technology that was available at the time to look at making emulsified forms of fats to put into food systems or bottled oils or what have you. That's all the work that was done in collaboration. We could never have had enough money to finance that all ourselves and put all those people into one building with $5 million of sales. You'd never do it. So over time, this is what has really helped us build our business, and it's right in front of us to do it in the future. We will look at the presentations today, and we'll look at some of the resources that I've seen today, and look at how do we actually engage that going forward, because we want to continue to grow. We want to continue to add, employees and products and service clients in North America and globally, and the only way to do that is to work with partners. Next slide, please. So the collaboration, I showed this picture of some of the new products we made here. Some of these are made in our facility. Some of them are made with partners. But the background of a lot of the stuff we're doing is reliant on that. The food center I mentioned earlier, STEP, I was in an event last night with STEP for an overseas client review. Prairie Tide, who does clinical tests or testing work for us as well. SAS Trading Export, Ag Canada, POS, and NRC. All of those groups have provided some service or value to us in the last 27 years. It helped us become the company we are, along with our staff that we have. But we really appreciate all of that mechanics in the background that have really helped us kind of get to the stage we're at today. And looking to the future, we really look forward to continuing that work. We have a couple projects with Shannon's group now, and we look forward to continuing to do more of that work where we can, because we don't have our own technology to do that or what have you. And really just to work to support our client base. And the encouraging thing kind of coming out of COVID, when I look at this, is the clients that pivoted and worked at home, like everyone here had to do at some level. The ones that really stand out this year are the ones that continue doing the innovation work, product design, and product launching. They really cooled off on spending money on certain marketing efforts, but they didn't slow down on the development side, which is great, because that means the value chain kind of going forward for those clients is strong, and the work that we can do locally with our partners and ourselves fits into there. So really, it's an encouraging piece, I think, for our business, but also for the Saskatchewan economy as it relates to ag and ag services, et cetera. So anyways, I want to thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, Cameron. Actually, that was really super interesting. And I look back, and you're talking about partnerships, regarding the floor and Innovation Place, and how long ago you needed those partnerships. How long ago? I'm sorry to age you like that. But, I don't know if I noticed it 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I don't know if we would have the same conversation about how integral partnerships are to success as we do now. If it was always there and we didn't talk about it, or if we just really actually fundamentally understand now that to grow, it's the only way to move forward. So I want to thank you for all the words of wisdoms from Dr. Gerdts all the way to Cameron with his on-the-ground experience. And we'll start with Dr. Stephen Webb, who's the Executive Director and CEO of the Global Institute for Food Security. Stephen joined GIFS in 2019 following a 23-year career with Corteva Agriscience in Indianapolis. At Corteva, he led many research collaborations with private sector companies, research institutes, and universities around the globe. And he developed and deployed Corteva's external innovation partnership process for driving new products and technologies to accelerate innovation. So Stephen earned a PhD in immunochemistry in 1998, a master's in biochemistry, and a Bachelor of Science degree in microbiology from the University of Guelph, Ontario. So thank you, Steve. If you'll start our show.
Sure. And again, I was hoping I'd go last because everybody's already heard me speak earlier. But thanks, Karen, for the introduction. And one thing that I also have the pleasure of not having to say who GIFS is, because Chris Barker just did a good job. So one interesting note that Chris didn't say, he and I were undergrads together at Guelph in the microbiology program. So normally here in Saskatchewan, you don't say anything about anybody because you're going to run into somebody's relative somewhere or somebody that knows somebody. But even all the way from Ontario, two guys came out through the microbiology program at the University of Guelph, are now working together here in Saskatchewan. So it is a very small world in the ag and food tech. Chris introduced GIFS. I want to go back to what our three priorities are for our strategic plan is how can we act as an integrator and a catalyst to spur on innovation? How can we create scale to enable innovation? And then how do we work with partners? So one of the things that you don't hear GIFS talk a lot about today is here's the really cool science projects we're working on, because everybody we want to partner with has really cool science projects that they are working on, and we want to see how we can help them move the ball forward. We heard the phrase innovation is a team sport. We'll hear it again and again and again. And on a team, you can score the goals, and that's kind of nice. But at least for me, when I played hockey, I was never the goal scorer. But if I could get an assist, that was just as good. And that's kind of the attitude that we have at GIFts, is how can we help score goals for Canada, score goals for our companies, and at the end of the day, our team wins. So again, that's how we look at the issue, at the opportunity. So the way we work to drive innovation is both applying our technical expertise and our capabilities that are our platform technologies that are unique, such as our omics and precision ag lab that's come out of the PERC program that Chris mentioned. Again, that has helped us work across not just the ag and food sector, but also the healthcare sector and the biomaterials sectors, again, helping move things forward. We help connect people. So again, opportunities like our relationship with Bangladesh has created trade opportunities for exporters and grain companies here in Canada as well. Again, growing trade. What does that mean for GIFts? Not much today, but those partnerships and relationships pay dividends down the road. And again, how do we grow the pie? And then our area that we're really proud of and what's different in our strat plan has been the focus on our technology platforms. I mentioned Opal, our data management and analytics, because ag is a digital business, our cell biology group, our new facilities, thank you Innovation Place, for getting us into some world-class facilities, allow us to do our plant growth and imaging capabilities as a capacity in our future engineering biology platform. And again, all of those are designed to create partnerships to drive innovations forward. We're focused on outcomes and impact, as Chris mentioned, and that's how we want to work with people. We're happy to be on the bus with everybody else as we get to that goal. And again, the BioOriginals story, I think, is a good way that we would hope to be one of BioOriginals' partners to get them to where they want to be, and other companies like BioOriginal. Karen?
Thanks, Steve. Our next speaker is Dr. Shannon Hood-Neifer. Shannon is the Vice President of Innovation and Technology at the Saskatchewan Food Industry Development Centre. Shannon has worked in the food industry for over 20 years, gaining experience in developing new products, assisting entrepreneurs start food companies, and implementing innovative solutions for food companies. So at the Food Centre, her primary role is to strategize technologies to be adopted and to help food companies work with non-traditional ingredients and innovative solutions. Shannon?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Karen. This is, well, I think most people here know what the Food Centre does. We primarily do product and process development, and we have some small-scale manufacturing capacity, which is why, part of the reason why this is very, very interesting, because we, as Cam had mentioned earlier, we can't do this alone. So when I think of, okay, so what's next? What's trending right now? Environmental sustainability, health and wellness, and the impact of food and nutrition on our well-being, and our consumers are knowing more about that impact. And so what can we do here in Saskatchewan to help grow that? And I think part of that is new diverse ingredients that come out of the program, and then fermentation. We have a number of ways that we can support companies here in Saskatchewan. Some of it's entrepreneurial support, and some of that is technological support. And I think we do need to provide both of that, which is why the GAAP program is super interesting. Is through collaboration and partnership, we can help grow and support new companies, grow them so that they can be more attractive to investors. And to do that, we need to build an ecosystem, a supportive infrastructure where we can have a place for invention, as Chris had said. A place for an invention, a place for capturing the value of that invention and growth. The Food Centre has been in conversation with AgWest Bio about the GAAP program, and how do we continue to grow this group. And we know that companies that receive support through incubation see higher revenues. They support more invention and incubation, and they hire more people. And so all of those things, we can attract more talent to the province, which then continues to grow and spur more innovation and more invention, especially in agriculture. What else do I have to say? I've actually pretty much covered it. Maybe I'll leave it for the question period, unless you want me to talk longer, Karen.
No, it's fine. We'll ask you the tough questions, because
Okay.
you do speak very fast. I have no doubt that was 4 minutes in practice. Yeah.
Jackie tells me a word count, and I think I double it.
So our next speaker is Jay Robinson. Jay is the Director of Agri-Tech Innovation at AgWest Bio for almost a year now. Jay also owns and manages Peacock Industries, a 35-year-old crop protection manufacturer with markets across the Americas. So he founded two companies, Biofume Technologies and Musgrow Biologics. And Jay is was the CEO of AgriFarm Consulting and served as commercial director for Lalamund, the director of global strategy and business development for Pathway Biologic, and a member of the board and a special advisor to the Food Center, Future Farms Facilitators, and Pathway Biologic. Jay?
Yeah, thanks, Karen. So I have the honor to work with all these people at the table, and most of my time is spent on the Global Agri-Food Advancement Partnership, or GAAP. And really, GAAP came around, and I'm sure we'll get into the history behind it, but really what we touched on and the focus is amalgamating all of the key points that we heard from today in building an ecosystem to really help Canada to strengthen our position on the global stage in ag and agri-food, and also maintain it. So as part of the ecosystem, from my experience, startups need, really 6 core things. One is talent, and that's not just talent of the entrepreneur, it's talent, as Cameron said, of the surrounding people. Regulatory, it's talent of engineers, design, all the things that go into that. The next is education, as we heard from SAS Polytech. It's continuous education of your staff that you have. Ideally, you're bringing in new people from local resources who seed the ecosystem with new ideas and the most up-to-date knowledge. But you also, hopefully there's an immigration policy bringing in the sharpest and brightest minds, both in education, but also from the workforce to give you more of a global perspective. The next one is market access. You want to have these startups need access to the market, access to distributors, access to early adopters and early customers. And then you also need to work with them on capital. And, that's obviously a big part of what we're working on. Access to capital is key. And the last thing is there's 2 more. One, which I think we touched on, and this is why we've got boffins in place through our partnership with Innovation Place, is networking and kind of shared programming. So it's for providing facilities that help companies connect. When people rub shoulders, they create sparks, and that's what we want to get going. And so Boffins does that for us. Obviously, AgWest has a number of events throughout the year that are facilitating to do that, promoting the new technology. And that's really what we've set up GAP to do. So GAP is in the nature of the power of partnerships. It's a partnership between AgWest, the Global Institute of Food Security, Innovation Place, the Saskatchewan Food Center, and a handful of private industry partners, where we've put together a hybrid incubator where we can house companies for up to 4 years, give them access to state-of-the-art labs, greenhouses, equipment. We can invest anywhere from $500,000, in some cases up to $1 million with other partners in these companies. And we give them because they're with us for 4 years, we can really get into the trenches, help them to understand their business, and give them very sector-specific expertise versus generalist expertise to help them migrate from that path from commercialization to market adoption.
Okay, thanks, Jay. And next we have Brent Sukanik. Brent is the president and CEO of Innovation Place. Brent joined Innovation Place in 2002 as the corporate controller. In October 2014, he was appointed CFO. In October 2020, he became the acting president and CEO. So prior to joining Innovation Place, Brent worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers as an audit manager, and he holds a Bachelor's of Administration designation from the University of Regina and is a chartered professional accountant. Brent?
Thank you, Karen. And thanks for the opportunity to come here and showcase Innovation Place and really explain what we do and how we add value to partnerships like this. Before I get into the partnership, or our role in the partnership, and why it's a perfect fit for Innovation Place, I want to pause and talk about a little bit of why we exist and what we do. Innovation Place has one purpose, and that's to help grow the tech sector in Saskatchewan. And we do that through the operation of Saskatchewan's 2 research parks, and by providing an environment that promotes innovation, collaboration, and entrepreneurship. A lot of words that you've heard today many times, and that's why we exist. The I'm going to give the condensed version of what this means, this unique environment exists of. And there's 5 key components. And it starts with getting the right companies in the parks. Companies that operate within our targeted industry-specific clusters or provide support to the clusters. The second component is then we provide the technical infrastructure companies operating within these sectors need. From an ag perspective, this includes greenhouses, growth chambers, labs, and process utilities. The third component, and that's the social component, and you just heard a lot of talk about that, and that's what we do to promote intercompany collaboration and networking. And then, of course, there's the physical aspect that plays a significant role in supporting the growth of tech companies. This includes providing a full range of product that supports every stage of business, right from startup to the growth and then onwards. And it also includes providing the different types of space. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's about providing the space that these types of companies need in one location, adding efficiencies to their operation. And then the fifth aspect, and that's the business environment that we provide. And that includes the flexible and supportive business arrangements that we have with all of our resident companies, but also the programming activities that we have to build capacity, as well as access to various strategic partners. And you've heard a little bit about that today with the Ag West Boffin Center and GAAP. So if I move on to why this partnership is a perfect fit for Innovation Place, let's start with the benefits that Innovation Place brings the partnerships. You know, the largest benefit is the access to an established sector. The agri-tech sector is one of the largest sectors in our Saskatoon park. We have just approximately 35 companies that operate in the sector. But in addition to what we do here, we're also strategically located beside the university, which creates access to a much larger scientific community. And from the context of GAAP, is really access to those innovation, those ideas that are needed to make this partnership successful. Because of this existing tech sector, we have the technical infrastructures that we need to support this. And you know, it's funny, it's just located right over there, but we are providing the greenhouses, the labs, the office space that will support the physical location needs of this partnership. And then the last one I see is in the startups and rapid growth stage companies operating within the partnership will benefit not only from the support and services operating within the partnership, but the programming activities that we provide throughout the park. And when we get into this, the challenge will be to make sure that our programming complements the programming within the partnership. I could go on about the value that we bring, but I also want to talk about the value the partnership brings to Innovation Place. And I think the largest one, or the largest value, is filling the gap in our ecosystem right now. Although we have a full complement of space sizes and various programming activities to offer companies, most early stage companies need a level of support that we can't accommodate, and that's where GAAP comes in. It fills that void and provides those services and fills it for us. The last, I'm going to think of over my time already, but the last one I talk about is the partnership that fills the gap in our environment. Historically, our focus has been on Saskatchewan-based local companies, the reason being that they show the most loyalty to Saskatchewan, they'll grow here and they'll stay here. We have not focused externally in attracting talent or attracting companies into our ecosystem, and this partnership fills that gap. So they'll attract the companies into the ecosystem, grow, support them, and then we will step in and provide that soft landing spot as they graduate from this program and hopefully move into the park or into other parts in the Saskatchewan ecosystem.
That's awesome. Thank you, Brent. I think we're going to send you on the road to actually market the gap for us. It was a great summary. So this is now where we're going to open it to our audience for any questions they have. Please type them into the chat. And I will ask a few of our panel to get started. So Jay, Could you speak a little bit to the history of how the partnership came about? And what have been some of the challenges in getting it together?
Yeah, I think that, right now, I think everyone in the room and on the call is probably aware that, the whole global kind of overarching theme is the world population is growing, it's more urban, it's global income's rising, which means there's a diversifying diet, and all that's putting extra pressure on the existing food supply chain to produce more with less. And Canada is very well positioned to do that. I think, we're the 5th largest global exporter of agricultural goods. I think we're 12th in the world of being a supplier of processed food and beverages. I think something like 1 in 8 of Canadians are employed by agriculture or agri-food. And I think we have roughly 8% of our GDP is derived from that. So the good news is we're so well positioned to capitalize on that. So when we kind of were thinking about GAAP, we took a step back and said, okay, well, where are the challenges? Some of the challenges are, we talked about how innovation is a team sport, and I think sometimes we have to look at it and say, we've done very well to get where we are, but it's not the time to sit with it on our hands. Other people are out to eat our lunch as a nation from that perspective. If you look at Fortune 500 companies that existed in 1955, only 12% of those exist today. And, there's an argument to be made that's the ones that remain are those that invested and embraced in innovation. So as a country, you look at the GDP, Canada spends roughly 1.7% of our GDP on R&D. The US spends 3%, Germany and Japan spend 3.5%, South Korea spends nearly 4.6, something like that. So the government needs to continue to invest in R&D for us to maintain our position as the 5th and the 12th, but also to improve on that. But that's not enough. Industry also has to invest and has to complement that. So last year, venture capital in Canada across all sectors was $4.4 billion that was invested. 90% of that went into Ontario, Quebec, and BC. Another over 80% of that from a sector perspective was in IT and life science. So the point I'm trying to make is very little went into agriculture and even less came into Western Canada. So that creates a huge opportunity for GAAP. So for us, we looked and said, the question that kind of presents itself there is, if Canada is going to maintain and strengthen its position on the global stage, and if innovation is the key to growth and success, how is Canada going to maintain and strengthen that when we're not investing in ag innovation and we're not investing in areas which represent 90% of our arable farmland? So that's why we created GAAP. So the aim of GAAP is to say we need to get more money into ag innovation. And it's not necessarily more money, it's more efficient use of money. The money's there. And we need to invest in it where all the things that everyone on the table just talked about exist, with the market, with the end user, and with the industry involved. And that's kind of why we came at it that way.
And I open it up to any of the other speakers, if you want to jump in, maybe from a tactical point of view. Why this for? Why us in particular? Just please don't hesitate.
Well, from a GIF's perspective, you saw our mission. We work with partners to help discover, develop, and deliver innovative solutions, and we know we can't do it by ourselves, and we know there's challenges. And one of the reasons why we were interested in the GAAP was as a way to solve some of the difficulties of advancing technologies from invention, like Chris said, to innovations that make a difference in the marketplace. And again, being able to spur on inventions through unique innovation models that the GAAP represents. So that's one of the reasons, that's our reason. It fits with our mission in terms of what we're trying to do, and we want to work with partners that exist, but this is a chance to create a partner that fits a need in that sector.
If I may, I would echo that. So the Food Center's mission is to, help grow and support, agri-food entrepreneurs in Western Canada, but specifically in Canada, or in Saskatchewan. And for us, there's a huge opportunity to invest in and to help grow those companies, especially when they are ingredient companies, including fermentation. So using fermentation and other biological systems to manufacture new ingredients for the food industry, there's a lot that needs to be uncovered there. There's a lot of research that needs to go on so that we can actually create these new ingredients to help support the food industry as it grows. There's going to be lots of hurdles, and we can't do it alone. And so for us, for the food center, that's why we were interested in this particular partnership, because we do see that this is the next horizon in terms of food ingredients, and Saskatchewan's well poised to punch above our weight, if I may use another sport analogy.
And just to add to that, I think from GAP's perspective, you know, from a startup, so most incubating accelerators spun out of Silicon Valley, where it's like a software model. So it's a very short period of time. These companies are with them, they focus very much on leveraging the investment network. In ag, the timeline's so much longer. We work in a heavily regulated industry. You can't bring multiple iterations to market and keep coming back and forth, and your upfront costs are very high. So, and scale up is a major challenge. So, talking about the 4 people on the table, the reason that these partnerships work very well for GAAP and the portfolio companies coming in, it all comes down to capital avoidance. So Western Canada, as I mentioned, is void of capital. So we need to do more with the money that we have and use it more efficiently. So, you know, if you think of scale up and let's say fermentation, we can work at a 5-liter, you know, benchtop scale in the facilities that we have with Innovation Plays. But then to go from that to 18,000 liters or 10,000 liters is where the food center can step in,
Yeah.
as they can with all the help with the FDA and food regulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the same with Steve is where we go with it, going to getting those commercial size scale kind of demonstrations, the platform on OPAL, the gene sequencing. You know, startups don't have to invest in those people and that staff up front. They can start to prove out the technology with a partner like Gerdts and then double down once they realize it. So,
And I guess one of the things that the food center has done is we've invested in building an infrastructure, and so hopefully by spring of 2022 there will be a place to do some small scale manufacturing for companies that are in this particular space.
You know, Shannon, the food center has already helped so many companies. You see them each day coming through your doors, and you're guiding them through that product development, scaling, training.
Yeah.
What are they telling you that they need? What's missing that you need to expand on?
Oh, that's the question, isn't it? The biggest one probably would be access to capital. It's probably one of the largest hurdles for most of these companies, which is why organizations like ourselves, especially like the food center, exists, because we provide that, you know, that physical space where you can access and manufacture your product at small scales and then be able to grow. But yeah, it's that investment capacity, and then the next hurdle, depending on the space that you're in, can be regulatory. So making sure that your food product is approved for food use and can be used in the way that you intended. Making sure that your product fits in the market. You know, the technical component is a large portion of what the food center does, and we have lots of expertise to offer companies there. But it's, you know, especially when you're growing, you don't necessarily have the revenue to cover off, you know, the capital and the operations and access to a bunch of smart people. And so I think, you know, that's where partnerships like this that we could leverage, so we can provide those things, not necessarily in each company, but for each company.
Yeah, see, I like the word capital preservation as opposed to avoidance or things like that. Because again, Shannon and Jay are spot on that things fail not necessarily because of the technical challenge. They fail for market acceptance, the regulatory difficulties, all kinds of scale up. As Jay mentioned, again, those are reasons companies fail. They can be technically brilliant and commercial disasters. In my career, I've had 3 startup businesses within Dow. 2 of them worked, 1 of them didn't. The one that didn't work didn't fail because of technical reasons, didn't fail because of scale up. It failed because we failed to understand the market. It was too far away from where we played. And again, those are things that are important learnings in why we believe the GAAP is unique in bringing that expertise, that sector-specific expertise that Jay referred to.
And in this case, market timing is really important. I do believe that now is the time. You know, a couple of years ago, we probably would have been too early, but if we don't do it now, then we're going to be too late. And so now is the time. So market timing is also quite important. Yeah.
And just to add that, so I think the big one is what comes fail is management, right? You've got to have the right people, and the right people, you never get that perfect person, so you've got to have, comes back to talent and it comes back to education.
Yeah.
You've got to invest in those people and build the right, you know, strengthen yourself with people who are better than you are.
Absolutely.
You know, the one-letter descriptions of organizations is big now, and I look at this partnership and who's sitting at the table, and I'm starting to think of the words that we could use for our marketing materials. Maybe that should be a challenge for the door prize is, can we be innovate, infrastructure, mentor, and scale? Who's missing from the table? Who else? What other words do we need? Jay, maybe you want to start with, maybe talk about a little bit about who's some honorable mentions that are quietly, maybe not sitting there, but working with us behind the scenes, and who we also want to have at the table.
Yeah, no, I think it's been great. You know, everyone's been very embracing of the idea, so I think, you know, Sask Polytechnic's one, you know, BDC, RBC, and it's been really interesting, you know, for us, emphasis on the big first word being global is that our partners go bridge beyond Saskatchewan. So several private industry partners that we're working with, but also we just announced a partnership with Shrita with the Voyage program, where we're working with them to bring external companies in. You know, Steph is another one that we've been working with, Ted with Westgard and his team. So I think they've been really good, and we continue to build those relationships. I'm sure I'm forgetting, you know, the nature of this, we're working with so many different groups. But you know, I think they've all been great and continue to do so.
How about anyone else from the table? Who else do we need to be sitting here? What's the next word? Is it dollar? No thoughts?
I think, you know, a big part of it, and I think it's been said today, is the funding model. And, you know, I really love the saying, you know, innovation is a team sport. And we've heard the talk of, you know, really the players that need to be involved right from the ideation stage right to the market stage. And included in that spectrum is funding partners. So I think there's an importance to bring, wherever we can, bring all of the parties together. And that's done through, you know, events like this. It's done through, you know, programming activities in the parks and even outside of the parks, you know, to bring in all of those different parties for that same goal.
One of the things that I think is really exciting about the Global Ag and Food Advancement Partnership is where it plays in the innovation pathway, in the context of being able to bridge those early stage, that focus, like Jay mentioned, on advancing, getting into the weeds. Because how do you get companies ready for access to other sources of capital? Is you have to de-risk them. And again, the GAAP helps us address those challenges that are for ag and food, that broad palette of expertise on consumer acceptance, end user acceptance, regulatory scale up is right at the beginning of the process. And again, that's something that this helps bridge and complements other players in the ecosystem that are more traditionally invest in companies that are more mature. The other thing that I like, which is really important to this model, is the opportunity for us to attract companies from other countries to set up here in that international perspective. So again, I think there's a lot that this offers that was missing, and a chance to help build that bridge. And the other point that I think is important, there's 4 of us at the table. Jay mentioned a lot of other players that are behind the scenes, so to speak. This is not about Ag West. It's not about gifts. It's not about the food center. It's about GAAP. And GAAP is a member-driven, not-for-profit organization, and a chance for come on in and join the team. It's not meant to be an exclusive club. So pony up.
Absolutely.
So we've got team on my list, global, funding.
I think the one to add to that would be, and I think, yes, you're doing this with your farmer panel, and we've done this too, is really getting engaged right down at the field level. So commodity groups, farmers, really the end users, so we know that industry and farm and entrepreneurs are working towards a practical solution to a real world problem. I think that's key too.
Yeah, so sort of a grassroots engagement. Steve, you did already speak a little bit to the challenges in the other funds that you started, but maybe, so this isn't your first rodeo, and you've been involved in both public and private sector. Is there a critical success factor in your experience?
I think Shannon's comment about timing, velocity is super, super important, because the opportunity window is not open forever for every business, for every technology, and being able to reduce those barriers to advance down the innovation pipeline in all of the examples that I have personally been involved with have been really, really probably the underlying critical success factor. And again, I see the GAP as being a way to bring together players and expertise to help companies, whether they already exist somewhere else in the world or are new startups here in Canada, to really be able to get to market as fast as possible with the constraints that we have in the ag and food sector, that it's long timelines and highly regulated.
Any ideas, any thoughts on that too, Jay or Shannon? You've also been involved in similar kinds of endeavors in the past. Critical?
Market timing is probably the biggest one, as Steve said. I think part of it is also making sure that we have the right people at the table and that everybody is marching towards the same goal. Will also be critical, and that we have appropriate handoffs and that we've clearly outlined our expectations of what those handoffs look like, and that we build partnerships so that everybody wins, including the users of the program.
I think an example of timing and where the trends are going. When I first joined Dow here in Saskatoon, we started the Nexera canola business, the naturally stable omega-9 oils. And Dave Divziak, Pat Corbett had been doing a lot of market research. There was some very interesting science being done at Harvard and Yale on the effects of trans fats. I can tell you in 1996, I didn't know what a trans fat was. I remember being told about this new opportunity we were going after and watching one of the professors talk about how bad trans fats are on the TV. These are primary research studies. That's the timing opportunity. How do you have a solution for a problem and the ability to get to market really, really quickly? And then I became an expert in trans fats.
So on a slightly different tack, Brent, you have a similar mandate to your organization, or the Innovation Place's mandate is to kind of connect and build and grow this economy, but it's not limited to ag. Is there any ideas that we could maybe apply from the other sectors that would help us with the gap?
Good question. And, short answer is definitely is. As we look, if you take, GAAP, what it is, there's a lot of similarities with, existing tenants in our park. And, Collab's perfect example, that incubator model that focuses on, providing the opportunities to those early stage companies. And now that's slightly different. It's in a tech, tends to be quicker, shorter, but there's lessons to be learned there. And that could be, programming activities. If you look at it from a larger perspective, is, how we have worked with collabs to complement their product. Because that's another opportunity here is, we don't want to be competing with anybody in the ecosystem. We want to complement what they're doing. And that involves, really understanding what it is, what the programming's set to achieve, and then how we can participate. And again, I go back to, this facility right here. We've got access to a lot of infrastructure, and we just have to understand how it can be utilized to drive the various initiatives.
There's another word for you, Karen, complementary.
Yes, absolutely. So I've been kind of hogging the question space. Lewin, is there any questions from the audience?
Yes, I have two questions so far. From Mike, is GAAP only for companies outside of Canada that move to Sask, or is it for homegrown companies too?
Would like to answer that, Jay?
Yeah, I can answer that. No, it's for both. I think there's different kind of prerequisites without going too deep into it here, but there's different prerequisites depending on where you're from and what you're at. I mean, typically the companies coming from outside of Canada are a little later stage than the companies that are coming in. And part of that is just, they have to take the risk to move or expand in many cases into Canada versus the companies here are kind of organically growing from the roots up. So short answer, yes, it's for both.
And Steve, you also, I'm sure, have thoughts on that.
I was going to say, yes, it's both. And to Jay's point, the needs are different, but that's one of the things about the opportunity for us is that as GAAP is being able to fill those needs.
We had one more question from Mike. Sorry, Karen. Could Shannon talk just a little bit more about fermentation capacity at SFDC, bacterial, yeast, size of tanks?
Oh, the technical part. So currently we have benchtop fermenters from milliliters to about 60-liter tanks currently. We have a 750-liter tank in-house, but is yet to be installed, and we are currently speccing out equipment for the expansion right now, and so I don't exactly have the details of the size of fermentation, what the size of those fermentation tanks will be, but it will be, we're hoping for between 20 and 30,000 liter capacity. In addition to that, we have invested in homogenization and cell lysis and ultrafiltration units to match capacity for what we can currently do. Happy to talk more specifically offline.
Absolutely. And would they just give you a call, send you an email?
Email is probably best. But I can circulate my email with.
But it is a good question for all of our panelists. How do you get involved? So who would you call? What if you're homegrown? Did we, given any, because it depends on your problem, I suspect, but how do you foresee us going forward in attracting this business? I always start because I can see you, Jay, first.
Can you repeat that?
So how would you get involved in the GAAP if you were a company, if you wanted to land here in Innovation Place from that perspective?
Yeah, so there's the two different streams if you're overseas or if you're domestic. Right now, the perfect opportunity if you're overseas is our partnership with Shreda with the Voyage program. You can go through and apply through that, and we'll get back to you in pretty short order. And there's details for that program on both Shreda's website as well as ours. You can reach out to any one of us here at Ag West. Mostly myself or Brad Bly, who's our Director of Commercialization. If you're domestic, same thing, that the best path is to reach out to myself via email or Brad Bly, and then we'll follow up with you there. So we don't do, like Brandon mentioned, collabs. At GAAP, we're not doing cohorts, so we're not kind of saying, applications, with the exception of the Voyage program, we're not saying applications are only open for 3 months. We run it much more like a venture capital firm. So we look for the best, most promising technologies with the best teams, and that's open-ended at any time. So reach out to us at any time if you're interested.
And I'm sure there's a number of people who think, because we're here in Saskatoon, this is just for Saskatoon and region. Brent, would you maybe comment on the fact that we're broader thinking than that and how that might look and work? Do you think it has room to apply?
You know, I think it does. It goes, you know, if I could build on a comment before, is we've got to look at the entire ecosystem as one and not think of, you know, Regina, Saskatoon, or outside of Regina, Saskatoon is, you know, our focus, so that our sector focus in each of our locations is tied to the research priorities of the universities. And that's why the majority of our ag tech companies reside in Saskatoon. However, as you get that crossover from ag tech into more of a ICT sector, there's that crossover. And then we get into, you know, we've got our largest sector in both of our parks is ICT. So there is an opportunity to work together there. One of the other things is looking at ag tech in Regina is we don't have that focus there. And as we look to the entire province as a larger ecosystem, there might be a need to start to develop that. And then we'll look into, you know, what does that look like? And then how do we integrate the two parks, the relationships with the universities, the relationships with the larger sectors in each city.
Thanks. So is there any closing thoughts that each of the panelists would like to make before I anxiously go to, well, first of all, any last questions and the door prizes?
I do have one more question, Karen, if that's okay. What kinds of services does Opal offer?
Opal offers, right now, it's two major areas. One is the high-end sequencing services for, you know, DNA, RNA, regulatory regulation in plants, animals, viruses, and we're going to be doing people soon at Opal as well, because again, it's multi-sector. And then the other area that we offer services is around our precision ag and some of the technology that has been developed at the PERC, or not the Plant Phenotyping Imaging Research Center, the big program at USask that GIFS manages on behalf of the university. There's some very interesting technologies that relate to being able to convert image data from the field into actionable information for producers, researchers, and growers, as well as that's the other services that we have right now.
You know, the AGM is, we spend weeks preparing for this. There's a lot of different moving pieces. So I really absolutely have to thank 5x5, Jackie, Aaron, Pamela. There are a lot of people that make this happen. And it's an exciting day for us. With that, I'd like to end our AGM. And thank you so much for coming. And after this, if those of you who'd like to join and ask any further questions on the chat room, please feel free to do so. And those of you in person can join us on the patio. Thank you. Bye-bye.